You wake up before your alarm, and for a few quiet seconds, you don't move. The room is still dark, your phone is face down beside you, and nothing has technically gone wrong yet. There is no emergency, no bad news, no message waiting to destroy your morning, but your body is already awake in that strange, guarded way, as if some part of you has been listening all night for a sound that never came. You lie there staring at the ceiling, trying to understand the weight in your chest. It is not sharp enough to call pain, not loud enough to call panic, and not clear enough to explain to anyone else. It is just there, sitting quietly under your ribs, like something you forgot to deal with but your body remembered for you. So you do what you always do. You reach for your phone, you scroll before you even know what you are looking for, letting other people's lives fill the first empty space of the day. A video plays, then another, then another. Someone is laughing in a kitchen. Someone is explaining how to become more disciplined. Someone is telling you that healing begins when you choose yourself. You watch all of it with a blank focus of a person who is not really entertained, only trying not to be alone with their own mind too early in the morning. Then you get up, brush your teeth, make coffee, and begin assembling the version of yourself that the world knows how to interact with. You answer messages with normal words. You choose the right tone. You add a small laugh where one is expected. If someone asks how you are, you already know the answer before they finish the question. I'm fine. Just tired. And the strange thing is, you are not completely lying. You are tired. But tired is also the most socially acceptable word for everything you don't know how to say. It can mean you didn't sleep well. But it can also mean you have been carrying memories your mind refuses to show you directly. It can mean your nervous system has been working overtime for years, scanning rooms, reading faces, predicting disappointment, preparing for rejection before it arrives. By the time you leave the house, you look normal enough that no one would suspect how much effort it takes to be ordinary. You walk down the street, pass strangers, wait at traffic lights, check your reflection in a window, and somewhere inside you, there is a quiet pressure to keep moving. Not because you know where you are going emotionally, but because stillness feels risky. At work, or school, or wherever the day expects you to perform, you become useful. You know how to be helpful before anyone asks. You know how to adjust your mood to the room. You know when someone is annoyed, even if they say they are not. You notice small shifts in tone, delayed replies, facial expressions that last half a second too long. Other people may call this sensitivity, but for you, it feels more like a survival skill you never consciously chose. And this is one of the first ways your brain hides pain from you. It turns old wounds into personality traits. You don't say, I learned to monitor people because love once felt unpredictable. You say, I'm just observant. You don't say, I avoid conflict because anger used to mean abandonment. You say, I'm easygoing. You don't say, I struggle to rest because being still makes the old feelings come back. You say, I like staying busy. The brain is very good at renaming pain so you can continue functioning. It does this because, at some point, feeling everything would have been too much. Maybe there was a time when you were hurt and nobody noticed. Maybe you had to grow up around people whose moods controlled the entire house. Maybe someone left without explaining why, or stayed, but made you feel emotionally alone. Maybe you learned that needing comfort made you inconvenient, or that expressing pain only created more pain. Whatever happened, your brain understood something important. If the full truth came to the surface all at once, you might not be able to keep going. So it did not erase the pain. It stored it somewhere quieter. It pushed some of it into your body. It hid some of it inside your habits. It buried some of it beneath humor, productivity, numbness, overthinking, and the need to be in control. From the outside, this looked like strength. People may have even praised you for it. They may have said you handled things so well that you were mature, calm, resilient, independent, but nobody asked what part of you had to disappear in order to become that composed. Later in the day, Something small happens. Someone you care about sends a message that only says, "Okay." That's all. One word. No warmth, no explanation, no obvious cruelty. If you showed it to someone else, they might tell you not to overthink it. They might say the person was probably busy, or distracted, or just bad at texting. And rationally, you know, that could be true. But your body does not respond rationally. Before you can talk yourself out of it, your stomach drops. Your fingers hover over the screen. You reread the message 3 times, searching for emotional weather inside 4 letters. You start building possibilities. Maybe they are angry. Maybe you did something wrong. Maybe they are pulling away. Maybe this is how it starts. That slow cooling you have felt before, when someone becomes distant and you are expected to pretend you don't notice. This is not about the text. It is almost never just about the text. The present moment has touched an old nerve, and suddenly, your brain is no longer responding to what is happening now. It is responding to every time silence meant danger, every time love felt conditional, every time someone's distance made you feel disposable. That is how hidden pain survives. It does not always come back as a clear memory. Sometimes it comes back as a reaction that feels too big for the moment. And because you don't see the connection, you blame yourself. You tell yourself you are dramatic, insecure, needy, too sensitive. You hate how quickly your mood changes. You hate how much one person's tone can affect your entire body. You hate that you can understand the logic and still not calm down. But this is the part most people miss. Your nervous system does not heal just because your mind understands. You can know that someone is probably busy and still feel abandoned. You can know that you are safe and still feel threatened. You can know that the past is over and still have a body that reacts as if it is happening again. Your brain hides pain because it is trying to protect you from being overwhelmed. But hidden pain does not become harmless. It simply becomes harder to recognize. It becomes the reason you pull away first. It becomes the reason you apologize when you did nothing wrong. It becomes the reason calm love feels suspicious, while inconsistent love feels familiar. It becomes the reason you call yourself independent when, deep down, you are terrified of needing anyone enough to be hurt by them. By the time you get home, you are exhausted in a way that does not make sense on paper. Nothing huge happened. No crisis exploded. No one screamed. No one left. And yet, your body feels like it has spent the day surviving something invisible. You sit on the edge of your bed and let the room stay dark for a moment. The silence presses in, and instinctively, you reach for something to fill it. Music, messages, food, a show you are not watching, a task you suddenly need to do right now. Anything is better than that quiet space where feelings begin to rise. Because when life gets quiet, the mind starts returning what it has been holding. Maybe this is why rest makes you uncomfortable. Maybe this is why you can be productive for 12 hours, but feel uneasy after 10 minutes of doing nothing. Maybe this is why you keep your life just busy enough that you never have to hear the question underneath everything. What am I still carrying? At first, the answer may not come as a memory. It may come as numbness. You sit there and feel nothing. And because you feel nothing, you assume there is nothing there. But numbness is not always peace. Sometimes, numbness is what happens when your mind decides that feeling the truth would be too much too soon. Imagine a house during a storm. The wind is hitting the windows, the lights are flickering, and the walls are shaking. To keep the whole system from failing, the power shuts off in certain rooms. Not because those rooms do not matter, but because the house is trying to survive the night. That is what your brain can do with pain. It shuts off access to certain rooms inside you. It lowers the volume. It says, "Not now." And for a while, that may be exactly what saves you. The problem is that, "not now," can become years. Years of saying you are fine. Years of being the dependable one. Years of making jokes about things that still hurt. Years of telling the story in a way that makes it sound smaller than it was. Years of choosing people who repeat the emotional patterns you already know. because what is familiar can feel safer than what is healthy. Then one day, you realize the pain did not disappear. It adapted. It learned to speak through your reactions. It learned to hide inside your preferences. It learned to disguise itself as your standards, your fears, your attraction, your avoidance, your anger, your exhaustion. It became so woven into how you move through the world that you stopped recognizing it as pain at all. You just thought it was you. But maybe you are not cold. Maybe you are guarded. Maybe you are not lazy. Maybe your system is tired from years of being on alert. Maybe you are not incapable of love. Maybe closeness feels dangerous because the people who were supposed to be safe taught your body that love could hurt. This does not mean you are broken. It means your brain learned from the environment it had. If affection was unpredictable, your brain learned to scan for changes. If your feelings were dismissed, your brain learned to hide them. If conflict led to rejection, your brain learned to fear honesty. If being vulnerable was used against you, your brain learned to keep the most tender parts of you out of reach. These adaptations were intelligent ones. They helped you survive. The overthinking tried to protect you from being blindsided. The numbness tried to protect you from drowning. The control tried to protect you from chaos. The emotional distance tried to protect you from needing someone who might not stay. You do not have to hate those parts of yourself, but you may need to ask whether they are still protecting you, or whether they are now keeping you locked inside the life you once needed them to survive. Healing often begins in this uncomfortable middle place, where you can finally see the pattern, but you do not yet know how to live differently. You notice yourself pulling away, but part of you still wants to run. You notice yourself panicking over a message, but your chest is still tight. You notice yourself saying, "I'm fine," and for the first time, the words feel less like truth and more like a reflex. That awareness can feel painful, but it is also the beginning of choice. Because once you can name what is happening, you can start responding to the present instead of obeying the past. You can pause and ask, is this danger or is this a memory? You can ask, am I reacting to this person or to someone they remind my body of? You can ask, what am I afraid will happen if I am honest? These questions do not magically heal everything, but they create space. And space matters, because hidden pain controls you most when it remains unnamed. That night, maybe you sit quietly a little longer than usual. Maybe you do not immediately reach for another distraction. Maybe you let the heaviness in your chest exist without turning it into a problem you have to solve in the next 5 minutes. You breathe, not perfectly, not peacefully, just honestly. And maybe for the first time, you consider that the part of you have been judging was never trying to ruin your life. It was trying to protect you from pain you did not have the support to process. It hid what you could not hold. It helped you keep going when stopping was not an option. But now, maybe survival is no longer the only goal. Maybe the goal is to stop disappearing from yourself every time something hurts. Maybe the goal is to feel without being consumed, to need without feeling ashamed, to rest without feeling guilty, to love without constantly preparing for the ending. Your brain hid your pain for a reason. But the fact that it was hidden does not mean it was gone. And the fact that it is coming up now does not mean you are falling apart. It may mean some part of you finally believes you are safe enough to know the truth. So the next time you hear yourself say, "I'm fine," pause for 1 second. Not to shame yourself, not to force a confession, just to listen. Because sometimes, "I'm fine" means you are okay. But sometimes it means, I learned how to survive quietly. And healing begins when you stop asking, why am I like this? And start asking, with a little more tenderness, what happened to me that I had to hide this much?